Hi guys, welcome into Mercy Makes. My name's Charlotte and I'm so excited to teach you today how to make this beautiful cami top with the side bow ties. She's absolutely gorgeous. I've loved wearing her so much. I've been layering her, wearing her with a lot of denim, and she's just so fantastic. And she's really easy to make and I can't wait to show you how to do it. So let's jump in and I'm going to show you what materials you're going to need. Alright, so the materials you're going to need for this one is a beautiful woven fabric. I decided to use linen here, but you can use cotton, rayon, whatever you want to do. You're going to need some dressmaking scissors. You're going to need some pattern weights. You're also going to need some pins and you're going to need some yarn. And I know it might sound random, but I'm going to show you exactly how we're going to use this a bit later on. A picker and an erasable water pen as well. A ruler. I think that's about it. So yeah, let's jump in. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to place the fabric flat on the table. If you are using a natural fibre, I highly do recommend washing it before you cut out your pattern pieces. I've already done this here and it just helps to prevent the shrinkage. Sometimes when you're using pins to attach the pattern to the fabric, it can be quite time consuming. And if you are using a fabric that isn't slippery like I am here, it's a really good idea to just use some pattern weights. I picked these up from Bunnings for I think like $1. They're supposed to be sample tiles for like countertops and things like that, but they just work perfectly for what I need them to do. And finally, we're just cutting out the spaghetti strap. So what I would recommend doing is just cutting out really long strips of fabric here. So I'm actually measuring the width of the strap here. So it's 2.5 centimeters and I'm just using a water erasable pen. Beautiful. So the amount of pattern pieces you'll need in total are 2 fronts, 2 back pieces, 2 strips for the front and back frill, and multiple straps. So I think I've got about 6 here. So we're going to start by placing the front panel piece on the table and placing the other piece right on top of it. Next up, we're going to pin together the front neckline and the side seams of the panels. If you are using a fabric that does have a pattern, make sure they're facing each other towards the inside. Alright, time to hit the sewing machine. So we're going to start out by putting these together with a 1 centimeter seam allowance. Now, as I get closer to the top of the triangle peaks of the front bodice, I'm just going to stop and backstitch. Then we're actually going to lift up our foot. We're going to place our fabric a little bit over to the other side of the peak and we're just going to start sewing again. So basically we're just leaving a little hole at the top of both of the peaks. This is actually where we're going to be later on inserting the spaghetti straps and turning this beautiful piece into a top. So what we will do now before we do bag it out or turn it inside out with the right ways facing, what we need to do is actually clip the edges of the seam allowance that are on a curve. So for example, this front curve here. Basically when you do that, it just makes sure that when you do bag it out or turn it over to the right sides, that it is going to turn out nice and smoothly and look way more professional. We'll also be pressing them as well with the iron, but it's just a great way to get a nice clean finish. So I'm just going to go ahead and trim those now. Once you've nearly bagged it all out, we're then going to take it to the iron and give it a nice press. Perfect, so the front is done for now. Now we're going to move on to the back panels and do the same thing. So overlay both the panels together. And again, if you do have a pattern, make sure they're facing on the inside. And we're going to pin it all the way around and sew a 1 centimeter seam allowance. So as you can see here, I'm just sewing along and I'm going to stop where there are some notches on the pattern pieces of the back panel. This is basically where we're going to be inserting the spaghetti straps to the back of the top. So make sure once again that you're sewing along, you backstitch on either side of this hole, and then we're just going to leave about a 1 centimeter hole where the notches are and continue sewing along. And then I'll show you how to insert the spaghetti straps a bit later on in the tutorial. Beautiful. So now we're going to bag it out and again take it over and press it in place. All right, so there's many ways that you can make spaghetti straps with loop turners and safety pins and things like that, but I really enjoy making them with yarn, and I'm gonna show you how I do that now, so let's go. So we're gonna start by laying out one of the straps onto the table and then overlaying it with the yarn like I'm doing here. Then we're going to fold over one of the sides and we're just going to stitch it together in place. Now once that's done, we're going to fold the rest of it long ways and we're going to stitch it down in place, making sure that you're not catching the yarn on the way down. Next up, we're going to trim off any excess fabric, as you can see I'm doing here. And then we're going to start by gently pulling the yarn out. Now once we've done that, we're going to cut up the main 2 spaghetti straps first. So we're going to take them, we're going to fold them in half because they need to be on the fold, and we're going to cut off any excess that we don't need. So we're going to do this twice, so make sure you have 2. So we're going to cut the rest for the side spaghetti straps. So they're a little bit shorter. So we're going to start by pushing the spaghetti straps from the inside to the outside through the peak holes. Once you get towards the end of the spaghetti strap, turn the top to the inside, pin it in place, and then stitch it in place as well. Make sure you do this for both sides. If you're worried about them coming out at all, you can stitch it over as many times as you like. And then once it's sewn, we can pull it back to the right side and it's starting to look like a top now. So at this point, I just popped it on the mannequin to just see how it was looking and sitting. You can also put it on yourself to make sure that you're comfortable with the way it's looking. Here you also have 2 options. So you can just keep the spaghetti straps straight and on the same side of each other as you put them into the back panel. Or what you can do is actually cross the spaghetti straps like I'm doing here. A fun little extra detail. Then I'm just pushing in the excess of the spaghetti strap into the back panel holes, as you can see here, and pinning them in place. And if there's any leftover strap, just cut it off. The first straps that I want to insert are going to be right on the corner of the armhole and the side seams. So I've just unpicked a little hole and created a 1 centimeter hole so I can pop the spaghetti straps through. So we're just going to do the same thing as we did for the other strap. So pop it all the way through and then pin it to the side seam and the seam allowance and sew it together with the 1 centimeter seam allowance. And you can sew it together as much as you want to make sure that it's in place. So we're going to do this for the front panel and the back panel in the exact same spot. And there you go. So it's done now on the front. Now in terms of the other straps, I didn't want to put a notch on the pattern piece just because I thought I would leave it up to you on where you felt it was most comfortable to place it for you. So basically when you find a spot that's comfortable, just pop in the first strap, and then on the other side, just make sure you're measuring down to where that strap is and make sure that you put it and align it in the same position on the other side. And it's the exact same process. Just make a little hole, pop in the strap and sew it in place. And then you can do the same on the other side of the back panel. So you can just see here, I'm just popping them in the same places on the back panel. Beautiful, so now all the straps are in, that's so exciting. So I'm just gonna once again place it on the mannequin, or you can try it on yourself, and just make sure that they're sitting nicely once you tie them together. Beautiful, oh my God, we're so close. Now it's time to add the frill. So there's multiple ways that you can gather your fabric. I found this new way recently on TikTok, so I thought I'd give it a try. So you're going to start by lengthening your stitch similar to how you usually do gathering. So I've got mine at 3.5, but you can even go 4 or 5 if you want. As you start sewing, you're going to just grab on to the thread at the top of your machine, like you can see me doing here, and hold it, creating extra tension. This is actually going to make the fabric gather itself. Once both of your panels have been gathered, what you can do is take it to the overlocker and just overlock the raw edges. Now, if you don't have an overlocker, that's okay. Just use a zigzag stitch on your sewing machine. This just helps it prevent from fraying and just gives it a nice and neat finish. Alright, so once you've overlocked the sides and it's looking nice and neat, now we're going to attach it to the rest of the top. So now that we've overlocked the edges, we're going to take one of the gathering pieces and we're going to attach it to the bottom of the top. So as you can see here, I'm just using little pegs to secure the gathered side of the panel to the bottom of the top. Once it's sitting nicely, then you can sew it together with a 1 centimeter seam allowance, making sure not to catch the other side of the lining of the top. Once that's done, you can do the same thing to the other side of the top. We're going to turn it to the inside. We're going to fold under 1 centimeter of the seam allowance of the lining, and we're going to pin it in place like you can see here. Once it's pinned nicely in place and covering the raw edge, we're just going to edge stitch it in place.
And there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this beautiful tutorial today. Please let me know again if it was at a good pace or if I should go slower or faster for the next one. And yeah, if you've got any questions, please let me know. If not, I'll see you around. Bye.